my complete setup. One day of food and snacks minus 2 pounds of water. Now, as we go around and everybody gets into the specifics of their packs, but right now we're going to focus on the big three. And I just want to say this up front because people, including myself, can get what I call twisted up about gear. You could get sucked into YouTube rabbit holes. You can get sucked into meeting other people on the trail, looking at gear, thinking somebody else has something better than what you have. It's going to happen. You're going to see something that you think you might need, but the overall goal is with your big three, you're extremely comfortable. Now, I'm going to go over my pack and then everybody else will show you their packs. So we'll start with the pack. So this pack, it is the ULA Circuit, 55 liter. The pack itself is right at 2 pounds. Prior to this, I carried for several years, 7, 8, 9 years, the Gregory Diva. So my Gregory Diva, the pack itself weighed 5.5 pounds. So the pack itself is very, what I call personal. You'll see people walking up and down the trail, they got stuff dangling everywhere. I can't stand that. I like a pack that's very compartmentalized. And one of the main reasons I like the ULA Circuit is because my Gregory Diva spoiled me. It had a suspension system. And before I bought the Circuit, I did buy a pack, one of those ultralight packs, because I got sucked into the rabbit hole. If I had to have an ultralight pack, oh my God, everybody's got one. I hated it. I hated it. It hurt my back because I got used to that Diva. I like a padding system on my back, and I like suspension.
Suspension
meaning it's got metal harness or aluminum stay. In this pack, it's called an aluminum stay. And it's got a platform behind your back so you don't feel all your gear. And to me, the pack is more sturdy, it's more stable, and it's got rigidity to it. And also, ULA, for the females in the house, you can customize your pack. You can customize your belt, and you can customize your straps. And you will see this strap is kind of an S shape. So ULA has J straps and S straps. The S strap is for the females because we have particular body parts that men do not have. And females carry their weight differently. And if you try on a female-specific pack, the males, if you try on a female-specific pack, you will not like it because of the straps and the way that we have to carry, the weight on our hips and our shoulders and our various torso links and things like that. And what I found with this ULA is these S straps are amazing. They don't touch the frontal areas at all. The straps come down and they go down really beside your armpit, and that really frees you in the front. And that is vitally important for females. And any males, if you're ever teaching without a female around and you have female participant, you need to know that. It's highly important because we do carry our weight different. And the main thing with a pack, I highly recommend you go get fitted. Because I've never worn a small anything, even as a child. I'm large, extra large. So when I first started going and looking at packs, I was like, I need the largest you have. Well, that's not the case because your pack is measured by your torso. So I have actually a women's small pack because my torso is a 16 and a half, 17 inches. Stand up for me. So when you go to turn around for me, when you go to get measured, You want to be measured from this area here down to your lumbar. I'm going to turn around for these guys. Properly for this area here to right here. Because when you put your weight belt on, ladies, we all know where our hips are. You can feel those two bones. Gentlemen, sometimes you got to search to find yours. Those hip bones. If your if your pack fits properly, the bottom of this will sit on those bones. And then the top of it, you can see this, the stay that's in here. You can see this part right here. This will not be on top of your head. I see people hiking down the trail, and I'm like, I don't know how they're hiking because their pack, the top of the torso, is up here. You want this, stand up again, my model. You want the top of your pack sitting right here, right at the shoulder base. That's the key to success with your backpack. And if anybody starts to measure you, most people go to the REI or whatever. The best pack fitting I had was at Neal's Gap. This is where I got this. Mile 30 on the Appalachian Trail. And the reason I went there is because they're infamous and famous for doing pack shakedowns. And a lot of times northbound hikers will end up either buying new gear, buying a pack that actually fits themselves, or sending home 20 to 30 pounds of weight. And they're known for that. So I do recommend, if you're going northbound, go through the experience of, that, having Neal's Gap, the gentlemen or the ladies there, go through your pack. And you'll see my safety hanky here. No matter what, it's in the front. And one of the things, the other thing, and then we'll have, whichever one of you guys want to go next with your pack, show a different style. ULA, you can buy accessories. And I am a one pole person. And I don't know who was saying yesterday about the hands. So the ULA packs, when you're hiking, they make a strap you could put your thumb in. And they come with two, but I'm a right pole person typically. And you could just unclip it if you decide you want to put it on the right. But that's one of the accessories that you can purchase outside of that. So you guys can feel free. I'll pass this around. You can feel the weight again if you want to. So there's the pack. So there's the first of your big three. And these gentlemen here are going to show you their packs and why they decided to get the one that they like.
Add to that?
Yes.
I have a Big Agnes tent. I love it. Big Agnes just came out with the women's pack this year.
They did? Okay.
I got measured for it, and it was the 60 liter, and it was supposed to sit right. The hip belt was not small enough, so it went down over my hips, even though it was supposedly sized for a woman, and my shoulders absolutely were dying.
Yeah. So here's the thing with women. Here's the other thing with women. I'm glad there's a lot of women here. Go women. A lot of females, especially your size, depending on your torso size, you should consider a youth pack. A youth, Y-O-U-T-H. Hopefully you can understand what I'm saying. A kid pack. I've seen a lot of women out there with kids packs on because that's what fits. And there's also, you have to consider your body weight. You're never supposed to carry more than 20% of your body weight. So if you're a tiny female, that youth pack will fit you. It will hold what you need.
Which gives me a lot of latitude, by the way. Right, so I go.
Yep.
Well, I've hiked with a few packs. My first pack was a Gregory Baltoro 65 litre pack, and I did that in 2014. It was 5.5 pounds. The pack empty was 5.5 pounds. But the wonderful thing about that particular pack was it had so many zips and so many access points to your bag. And if you, I've changed how I do it now, but what I was then able to do, I could go in at one zip or other and find everything that was in my pack, so I knew literally where everything was. In fact, I told somebody the other day, I actually found a pocket in that pack after I finished the hike. I didn't even know it was there. So I realised when I got back from that, I was never going to hike again, I thought, and for some reason I did. So when I went on the John Muir Trail, I bought an Osprey pack, which was quite nice, and I think that was quite nice, but I knew I needed to cut weight. And this is an Arc Blast 55 litre pack from Z-Packs, and it's 19 ounces. So immediately I've saved £4, more than £4 from my weight by having this Arc Blast. And I absolutely emphasise what Jester said, because I'm a pretty big guy, as you can see, but mine is a medium pack. And I went to Melbourne in Florida, across the state from me, and I said to them, I need a large pack, but I probably need an extra large pack. He said, one look at me, he said, no you don't. Said, you probably need a medium. So I said, no, look, I'm a big guy. So he measured me up, and he put a large pack on me, and it just didn't feel right. As soon as he put this on me, it was perfect. So couldn't agree more that before you buy a pack, whatever it may feel like on you, go and make sure it's measured to you. You did the same, didn't you, actually?
Yes.
Yeah, you went to Z-Packs as well. Make sure it's measured to you, because you will thank that person for measuring you every day that you're on the trail, because a badly fitted pack is so uncomfortable to actually be wearing. And of course, she's much more technical than I am, so for me it's just put it on, strap it up. One thing I was taught very early on was you should basically, for the first week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe even throughout your hike, be adjusting how these things fit, because you can pull these up a bit, these rises up a bit, you can lean forward and pull these a bit so they feel a bit tighter and they fit better to you. And every day I found I was readjusting the whole time until probably 2 months into my hike. But this is pretty perfect for me. So don't be frightened. Don't think once you've started you can't adjust it. You have to adjust it to make sure it works for you. And also I would adjust it differently if I was going uphill and if I was going downhill, because it felt different in different places. But once again, that's a matter of feeling, what it does feel like to you. In terms of accessories, well, this actually does come without a belt, which was not a good idea, of course. And that's an additional thing. You buy this belt, or I bought this belt, and I had these added to it. These bags, quite good capacity for these, but always worthwhile, because a 55 litre pack was 10 litres less than I had the first hike, so I obviously needed to find space for other things. I had. You can get also across the chest strap. You can also get another bag fitted, quite a good sized bag as well. It gives you even more capacity. And I had a fanny pack as well. So really, I was making up my exterior, my capacity by using that. But the best way of getting extra capacity is this thing. This can fit so much. I never had any problem with it at all. I've stretched. I've had almost twice as much stuff in this as there is now. It seems to expand and expand and expand. The other thing about a pack, and my pack particularly, which I've only learned from partway through my second hike, I don't have a rain cover at all. But what I do, I have these very strong compactor bags inside, a white one as well. Because it's white, you can see down into it, and you can see where things are, and then you pull things out from there. So having these compactor bags roll it up, and everything will be dry at the end of the day. Your pack will be soaking, so anything you want here not to get wet has to go inside the pack somehow, or it will get wet.
Trash compactor bags, you can get them at Walmart, Lowe's. If you do what I did, I went to Lowe's and all they had was like a 75, there were 75 in a box. So I have now enough now until I quit hiking, I guess.
Actually gave me this one the other day, so I didn't have a large enough one. But yeah,
pretty cheap.
These bags are great. So even with my stuff in it, it's incredibly light. So, I think cutting down your weight by leaving out luxuries, as I say, I believe is a bit of a mistake. But cutting down your weight by getting a lightish pack and getting a lightish tent will really help you, keep that weight down for you. That's my pack, and I wore it recently, and it worked very well in the desert, and I think it's great. Yeah, I loved it.
One of the things too with this bag that I love, you see what I could do here? So if it's pouring down the rain and you got to set up your hammock or you got to set up your tent, the outside of my tent might be wet, my hammock tarp might be wet, but my pack might be wet, but I could just take this like a garbage bag, nothing inside here is wet, sling it in my tent, and you're good to go. So you could use a pack cover, but you do risk, unless it covers, it will happen, because it's happened, your back is not covered. So that rain's coming down and it's soaking all to the inside of your, yeah. Compactor bags. There's a lot of the Cottage Outfitters, Light AF, Z-Packs, Waymark Gear. They sell the Nylafume bags. They're clear. Same thing as a compactor bag.
I don't think they're as strong because I've already put a hole in them.
Have you? Okay.
Yeah, the compactor bags are perfect.
Yeah.
They really are. They're really strong plastic. Yeah, that's my pack.
All right. Now which pack is yours, Mighty Blue?
Arc Blast.
Arc Blast. So this one is the Arc Haul from Z-Packs as well. When I first started my hike, I'm going to go over a little bit of what y'all did a second ago about making sure it's fitted. When I first started my hike, I didn't know anything about needing to have a pack fitted or anything like that. So I ran to Walmart and got one of the Coleman packs that they had there. I think it was like a 75 liter. I don't even know what size it was.
15 pounds.
Yeah, I mean, it was ridiculous. But so that's what I started the hike out with. And of course it wasn't fitted properly and everything else. And I was miserable. I mean, it was just hurting my hips, hurting my shoulders. It was just hurting everywhere. So I ended up, while on the trail, changed out, once I got to Franklin, changed out to a Kelty. It was a 50 liter, worked great through my whole hike and everything else. Once I got done with my hike, wanted to change packs again, ended up getting a couple of the Osprey packs because they have what's called the AG series, which means anti-gravity, and very comfortable pack. When you put it on, the best way for me to explain it feels like a little monkey just sitting there hanging on to you. But right, very comfortable, but it is a heavier pack. I think those packs weighed, just shy of 4 pounds a piece. So I did want something a little lighter, and that's why I went with the Z-Pack pack here. On the inside, let me show you what I use. They talked about their compactor bags. This is a little more, but it's made out of Dyneema. It's a pack liner. It's got the Velcro, so once you seal it, you roll it down and it works. It's a dry pack. Dyneema is very, very strong. I don't ever worry about getting holes in it. It's totally waterproof. So with everything in there, and then most of my stuff that I have, my stuff sacks or my dry sacks are Dyneema also. So I could probably take that and throw it in a river, and everything inside would be perfectly dry when I brought it out.
We should test you out.
Yeah, let's do it.
I want to see you chuck it in a river.
I would. I mean, I'll take everything out of the outside stuff, but, so, this, I think I've got this down to probably 12, 13 pounds, maybe 15 at tops. And I've got everything in here right now. I've got one of my hammocks, the tarp, top quilt, under quilt, my stove, my cookware stuff, pretty much everything with the exception of the food right now. So that's base weight.
And that's 50 litres, isn't it?
That one I think it is 50 liters as well.
You guys have any questions about the pack? I think it'd be good to take a field trip so we can walk and warm up a little bit up to the tents.
Yeah, show you tents. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do tents.
Any questions about packs? And we'll leave these out so you guys can. Of course, we're going to dig around what's in them. Yeah.
But we thought we'd warm you up.
Of course. Yeah. So we'll walk up the hill. So the next part of the big three is the tent, your sleep system, what you're going to sleep in, hammock, tent. And Skunk gets a whole session on hammocks here later. I'll probably say this more than you want to hear, but gear is so personal. And to me, your tent, or what I like to call your home, is something that you need to look forward to at the end of the day. It's not something that you want to drudge or, worry about. You want to be able to get in your little home and get out your pad and your quilt or sleeping bag or whatever you're going to use, because you're going to be in it for a long time, 6 months. So you got to be comfortable with your home. Anybody ever buy a house and decide this is not really what you wanted? You put it up for sale and you go find another place, right? So all along, we'll just call this Tent City. All along Tent City, you could see I don't think one tent is alike. And this particular tent here, Austin, I don't know if you want somebody else to hold the camera, because I'd love for you to go over. You
want to trade?
Okay, yeah.
So this is my tent. Last night was my first night sleeping in it. This is a new tent made by a guy named Dan Durston. He's a Canadian up in British Columbia. This is his new X-Mid Pro 2. So this is technically a two-person tent. But the really cool thing that I geek out on with the Durston tents, we'll get over to the Z-Packs duplex up here in a second. But if you notice where the pole placement is, so this is a trekking pole tent, so what's holding these up are trekking poles. But if you notice on the duplex, the trekking poles are pretty much on either side, where this one they're set at angles. What that does, what I really like about it is that if you open it up,
Go take a look, everybody. You got to see this.
That's great inside of us.
the poles are at an angle so that it's not blocking the door at all.
You come to me last night?
Oh yeah.
And this is a two-person?
This is technically a two-person, but I'm a big enough guy that I fill it up.
That's nice, I like that.
But all of the Durston tents are going to be this design. The difference with this one is it's made out of a DCF. So his other tents are made out of a steel poly, which is still a very durable fabric, but it's much heavier. So this ranges with my five stakes, comes out at 22 ounces, whereas my other X-Mid that I have that's made out of the silk poly is 36.
And TCF, that's all big Dyneema?
Dyneema composite fabric, yes. So that's this tent. And like I said, Jester's got one of the X-Mid one person, so it's going to be just a smidgen smaller than this. And it works for her as far as size. So
And it is the sill poly, so you'll be able to, I don't have it set up, but I have it, so you can feel the difference in material.
yeah.
I went with a single person tent when I first went in 2014. It was a big mistake because I literally didn't realise I had to share the tent with my pack. So now I've got a two-person tent, and I think one person should always take a two-person tent. So you can spread your stuff around you. That's what I like about it, being inside the tent. I can move stuff around. Paul is going to tell us later on that you can move your stuff around the hammock. I'm still waiting to see that. But as far as the tent's concerned, that becomes your home, and you put things in certain corners. And you put something underneath as well, Dios?
Yes, so I've just got a little, whatchamacallit, the ground cloth.
Yeah.
And I do that one as protection for the ground or for the tent from the ground, but also I've learned that a lot of moisture in the ground in the morning, and the tent can just grab onto all kinds of dirt and debris and all kinds of stuff. So it just makes packing up a lot easier. If the bottom of your tent is clean because you've got that ground cloth, that can go in its own bag, and then the ground cloth, you can shake it out and stuff it in somewhere and keep it separate.
I use Tyvek. In 2019, virtually every other tent was a Z-Packs. They'd all come out, they were incredibly popular. I can see why they are. This has lasted me a through hike, and it also lasted me in California. Although I did notice the other day, that around here it's starting to tear a little bit, which is not good, obviously. So when I get back, I'll speak to them about it. But the big winner for me, there's a number of things here. I can set this up as a freestanding tent. I've got these poles in the back of my pack, which I showed you earlier on, which will set this up as a freestanding tent. So once it's set up, you can literally lift it up and move it over to there. But I like to stake it out. It's better for me to stake it out. And there are 8 stakes. So it does take up quite a bit of space if you do stake it out. What I often do is get a stick. This is where my head is, and I put the stick in there, and that makes it even higher for your head. That's pretty useful thing to do. You literally just put the stick here, and you can make it a little bit higher. That kind of works out pretty well. I often sleep with one of these open because it does get condensation sometimes. I didn't get any condensation last night at all. But when we were at the falls, I think because I was close to water, I got some condensation. It wasn't too bad. There's plenty of room inside. There's a little place to stow your phone or whatever. But it's pretty sturdy. It's not going to go anywhere. When the wind's blowing, it's quite safe. I've been in some very heavy storms here. I only once had a bit of rain in because I hadn't fully pulled these lines out, and so there was a tiny little gap which I didn't realise till about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I had to bail out a little bit. But I don't put anything underneath it anymore. I've never had any holes in it at all, and I don't feel any dampness coming through. And it's worked perfectly well for me. But I don't know whether any of you got Z-Packs.
I do.
You do?
Yeah,
You like it?
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. But I stake it out, but I also use my poles because it does give you so much more room.
Yeah, you can sit right up.
Yeah.
I can sit right up.
The
and not-
sides out, yeah.
Yeah.
It's plenty of room for Wiley and I. And I have 2 pads that I hook
And I say,
together.
it's 19 ounces, so it's really nothing, and it packs down to nothing as well. And that's another way, like my pack, I'm saving extra weight by having a lighter tent as well. And my first tent was about 2.5 pounds, and this is just over a pound. These stakes. One thing to remember about when you're hiking the AT, the further north you go, there are places you literally can't stake out your tent, which is they have these tenting platforms in some campsites. So getting those poles is quite useful if you've got a Z-Packs, and you can literally just pick it up and move it around, and it will sit on top of those tent platforms. And you'll see those obviously when you go up there. But yeah, it's a great tent. I love the bug net. It works really well. I've never snagged anything. I've never had any breakages or holes anywhere. And this has done now something like, I guess, 2,500 miles, and not had any issues with it at all. So it's reliable. But I know that, I must admit, I had a bit of tent envy there. That one just down there.
Yeah, that is a nice tent.
There is something too, and Austin just reminded me, and I'm not a gear nerd, but I do like to go down and geek out and do YouTube rabbit holes and things. Does everybody know the difference between a single wall and a double wall tent? So this is a single wall. This is literally one piece. So the bathtub or the floor is not separate. Whereas the Durston kind of is both. You can detach the bathtub floor.
So So the Pro model is not. It's all single.
Oh, it is okay.
But the original versions are double wall.
Okay, I didn't,
That's why
I
it's a
didn't
little
know that.
heavier.
So yeah, so I have one of the original version tents. So this is to keep in mind. So the single wall, they're known to get a little more condensation. That's why Mighty Blue was saying, you know, you kind of maybe have to leave one of the vestibules open. But if you look right behind, that is considered a double wall tent. So it has separate, I don't know, is that a Big Agnes? It has a rain fly. So it's got the rain fly, it's got poles that you have to set the tent up with, and then the actual bathtub and netting of the tent itself. So I just recently purchased the Durston. I carried an MSR Hubba since 2012, a one-person MSR Hubba. I still love it. I contemplated even bringing it to carry up to Dismal Falls because I just love that tent so much. But it is heavier. The double-walled tents are heavier. It's more and more popular now to go with trekking pole tents. And my one negative to that was the placement of the pole in the center of what is called your vestibule. But with the Durston, they're on the sides. And I was like, finally, there's a genius that ergonomically engineered how to set that tent up. But yeah, so the Big Agnes, do you want to, that's yours? Yeah. Do you mind if we field trip that way?
Just say to you though, by the way, when I open this partly for the condensation, but I also open it partly because it isn't always as cold as this, obviously. And when you're in the summer, there's something wonderful about I have all these open, both sides open, so it feels like you're cowboy camping, but you're doing the wimpy cowboy camp because you're protected from the bugs and the snakes getting in, and you can look out still. And it's a lovely way to, I think it's a lovely way to camp, to literally be covered just by that and looking out both sides. Working.
Is this fabric the same as the Durston?
Yes.
Yes, it is, yeah.
Same fabric.
Yeah, I mean, they're not cheap. This was $600 and the extra poles were another $120. So it certainly adds up. But the way I thought about it was the 6-month hike, the $600 is kind of worth it, you know. And I was comfortable every single night.
It's about the same, 600, just over 600.
Yeah, they're not cheap.
And they don't come with the stakes. You have to get your own stakes.
These?
Did yours come with
Yeah.
stakes? Mine didn't come with stakes.
Really?
Oh, it should have come with steak.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, I'd have a word about that.
And when you pay for that, they should throw those in.
Yeah.
I guess they, yeah, and mine was, you've had yours obviously longer than mine. So yeah, they must have changed
Yeah,
that policy.
They're great. You know, I don't regret. I never regret getting that at all. I love it.
I will say with the Durston, it came with some of the cheapest tent stakes I've ever seen. But that's ultralight backpacking. I really prefer, and I've just learned, because my first tent was an MSR, and my tent came with tent stakes that are called the Groundhog, MSR Groundhog. And there's the Groundhog tent and then the MSR Mini Groundhog stake. Those to me, they're robust. I mean, some of these tent stakes that come with these tents, you step on it one time, it bends in half, the arc of it falls off, but the Groundhogs are phenomenal.
It bends a bit. It never bends in half.
Oh,
That's my original stakes. So
that's actually, I'm impressed. I'm impressed. But
I have the MSR minis on the Durston if you're curious to see the size. But I'm a believer as well.
Yeah.
Because I beat those things up like it's my job, and they just smile back at me. So
right, who's next?
we'll go to the double wall and then down to Clay or Pony.
Looking Chuck, you're presenting.
Just to show the difference, like we said.
no pressure. No recording.
If we could, I mean, you guys can pretty much see, it's got a fly.
It looks nice.
But the main difference is everything is separate.
Yeah, I picked this one. This one,
Yeah.
actually, with everything, it's 40 ounces, so it's like double what their tents are. But I picked it because, first of all, I wanted something a little larger. I like having my equipment inside. It has the 2 doors, so the other side opens up as well. And I bought the fly that went with the Big Agnes just because I feel like if there's ever a problem, I can go to Big Agnes and say, look, I bought everything that goes with it. I had thought about the Tyvek, but I bought the whatchamacallit, the Ronquillo, thank you. I want to film now. And then it's got a lot of great pockets inside, and yeah, last night was my first actual night sleeping in it.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah, so I loved it. Yeah, it was great. Good headroom, and it fits a guy my size. So, yeah, very happy with it.
Did you have to sleep because you're tall? You're about 6'5",
6'3".
6'3". Oh, you look
Yeah.
taller. Stand taller. So did you sleep at an angle or?
Nope, I slept on this side and had about this much room all the way down from
Nice.
front to back. My head wasn't touching, my feet weren't touching.
Nice. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
So,
Okay.
yeah. So
The
good
big
tent.
thing about the tent, and obviously we're going to go over the sleep system, which is your quilt or sleeping bag. If you can't sleep on the trail, you're not going to hike very well.
Yes.
So you have got to be comfortable with your sleeping arrangement. If that means one of your luxury items is a pillow, then that means one of your luxury items is a pillow.
That's a necessity, by the way.
Yeah.
Absolute necessity. Anybody puts their clothes into a
It's the
Into a
most
bag.
comfortable pillow that I own. Is that little thing that you blow up?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, two other things real quick about this that I picked was just like Steve. I want to be able to pick it up and move it, but then also you can actually, if it's raining and you're in the middle of nowhere, I can set the poles and then the fly, and my tent will stay dry. I can set the tent up underneath the fly while I'm getting ready.
Nice.
That's a great feature. So.
Does everybody know the difference between a freestanding and a non-freestanding? So freestanding without the fly means you could pick it up with your poles and move it. So the Durston, okay, since I'm an educator, we have a quiz. Is the Durston freestanding or non-freestanding? Non. Is this one freestanding or non? Freestanding. A semi, you have to have one stake. But you could pick it up. Yeah. Big Agnes, he just told us the answer. Freestanding. And here's the big one. Steve's. Non, unless it has the pole system. Yeah. Yeah. Hooray, I got my education in. Here, we got our quiz in.
This is a tent I got sent to me to review for the trek. So I set it up once before I came up, but this is just the second night I've slept in it. I don't like the pitch I've got on it. You can see it's a little bit loose. Here's the thing. It's a pole supported tent. It's what's called a modified single wall. So it is one piece, but you can see that the rainfly sort of sticks out from it. And that's what they call a modified single wall. I have a Six Moon Designs that's a modified single wall that after 3 pitches, I like that one better than this one. The main thing is I have to extend my poles to the absolute limit of how far they'll go. And I think that's why it's still just a little saggy, because I can't get any more lift in there. So I like to have a really nice snap, like you can bounce a quarter off it. But the bottom line is, this is not freestanding. They're interesting, these modified single walls. This actually has a better design than the Six Moon Design ones, I think, because all of there's no solid surface or very little inside. It's mostly mesh. And so in theory, your condensation is going to catch underneath here, right? And I can see where if I wanted to bring a bunch of stakes, I could stake it out and tighten it up there. Again, I just don't think I've got this quite ideally pitched.
So here's the pole, right?
Okay, so there's a pole here, and there's a little plastic piece that they give you, and there's a pole there. Plastic piece is interesting. It looks like something to be easy enough to get lost. It's a separate piece, so I don't love that feature either. In the Six Moon Designs, it's just got these very, very tough pockets, so your pole tip goes up in the pocket. I like that better, I think, just because you can't lose the piece that's sewn on here. you know, this is an okay tent. I slept fine in it, but I need to use it a little bit more and see if I can't get a tighter pitch, because to me, this really ought to be, I want it looking like that. And there's really no more give here that I can do. So I do think it's probably a factor there. And I'm surprised. I'm going to call the company, because like, I can't believe that you have to extend your poles fully to do that. Gives you lots of headroom, but I'd rather have less headroom and a tighter pitch.
Is that loop in the middle to put a tie line out?
Yeah, a guy line here. These are for guy lines if you wanted it. I mean, you could definitely do that.
So is it important to have a real tight fit?
I like-
wind?
Yes.
For wind and for rain, because if it's gonna get wet and it's sagging like this, it's gonna press in on the mesh here, right? I mean, it's just in general, it's better to have it tight. So, what's that?
Long, isn't it?
It's quite long, it's quite roomy, it's more roomy than I need. I'll tell you what, that's a quarter dome 2 over there, and I don't know what the quarter dome 1 looks like these days, but my quarter dome 1 REI, reasonably priced, that I used for years, I bought in 2015, is just an amazing little tent. It's freestanding. Literally, you can even put the rain fly on. You can pick the thing up and throw it around. I loved it in the morning. I'd take my fly off, open the door, pick it up with the poles on it, and shake everything out. You know how hard it is to shake out. It's a pretty cool thing. Weighs a little bit more because you've got poles. Don't know what I think of this one yet.
What material is it?
It's still nylon. And then they actually seam sealed it, so there's seam seal stuff all over the inside. The material is incredibly slippery too. It's kind of weird, like sliding around in there. It's like a skating rink. And the thing is, when I was reading about setting it up, so it's possible this is user error. I haven't figured it out what I'm doing wrong, but it definitely implied, and I would want this not to come to the ground. So here's the bathtub. I mean, you can see how it,
And while he's doing that, everybody knows if you have a freestanding or double walled tent, you do not want your fly touching the mesh of your inner tent. That's when you have issues with your condensation getting your quilt or sleeping bag wet, and the possibility of rain coming down into your bathroom tub.
yeah. So interesting to, it's fun to try out new gear and stuff. And I'm always amazed at what companies come up with. Honestly, to be honest with you, I think the REI Quarter Dome 1 from 7 years ago is the one that I still think is sort of the most ingenious design that I've worked with. And just a great little tent. It does weigh, like I say, a little bit more, but I'll figure this one out. I do need to understand better. Like, I just can't believe that full extension is required, but it seems to be. So we'll see. Lots of different things. And at a certain point, I also think sometimes these companies get too complicated. You see these tents that are maybe ultralight, but they've got 80 little guy lines sticking out all over, and I don't like that very much. So we'll see about this one. I think it's okay right now, but it might be a little bit user error as well.
Any questions about tents?
So good.
All right, now we venture back. Now we're going to show our quilts and sleeping bags. I think we're ready.
Okay, I wasn't here. I was out gathering wood for backpacks. So I started out with the ULA, which I really, really like. Somebody here has a ULA. You?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that pack. I used it for a long time. I get gear to review, so I'm willing to try different things. But before I went out of the PCT last year, I just got a wild hair and I decided, well, can I shave a pound off my pack, and will I like that? So I ordered this Gossamer Gear Mariposa 60, and the minute I put it on my back, it felt like it belonged there. So I really, really like this pack. It's a 2-pound pack. It's got a frame, so it's not insubstantial. You can see it's got a nice wide hip belt. It's got good solid buckles. I have broken one buckle. It's lightweight, it's roomy, it's got this mesh, it's got this deep pocket, which in theory, I might not need the deep pocket. You can't reach into it, but a water bottle will go here. Here I keep day stuff. It's got this pocket on top. Two downsides to this one, I would say, it is not waterproof at all. I put a trash compactor bag in here anyway. Nonetheless, it's going to soak through. It just soaks through in very little rain. And then the second thing about it is it's pretty delicate, being lightweight and everything. Last year what happened was this started separating on both shoulders toward the end of the PCT, and I had to figure out, this is why I carry safety pins. I got them. I figured out a way to kind of shore it up and gut it to the end. The other thing is, you'll see this is not a super old pack. It's only got about 1,000 miles on it right now. This material, I would argue they might want to add an ounce or so to the pack and make it a little bit tougher. Because if you set it down on anything a little bit sharp, it will get a hole. I don't know where these holes came from. On the PCT, I made the very dumb mistake of not keeping my micro spikes in a solid bag. It was in a light bag, and they were at the bottom because I wasn't using it. And I plopped it on a tree root that had a bunch of sap, which was the second problem. But I noticed that my butt was covered with sap one day, so I looked, it's covered with sap, but worse than that, there was a big rip. And that's just because one of the points from one of those micro spikes had ripped through. So I would say that's the disadvantage of this pack. If I were the manufacturer, I'd add an ounce or two to toughen up this butt here. Otherwise, I will say I'm actually willing before any through hike to just buy a new one of these, because I've never, it's Gossamer gear, and this is the Mariposa they make. The Gorilla is 40, I think. This is 60. I've never had a pack that feels as good as this, and that's what matters most to me. Everything fits everybody differently, but for me, this fits me like a glove. It just feels like it belongs on my back. No chafing. I mean, I have zero pack chafe ever, a little bit on my lower back, but that's so that's my pack. I like it, and like I say, until I learn different, I'm probably willing to spend $260 before any long through hike and just get a new one. This one's got plenty of life in it. It's only got about 1,000 miles, so hopefully this one will get me through the CDT next year. And that's my pack.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Another personal item is either your sleeping bag or your quilt. And this can get complicated. So I actually have both now, a sleeping bag, and a sleeping bag is the zip. It has the zip and it has the hoodie. When you get into a quilt, I'll show you guys this one. A quilt to me is more like a blanket, meaning there's no zip on it. And when you hammock, Paul will go over this as well, you got to have a quilt because the zippers don't make any sense when it comes to your hammock and the cloth and things like that. So when it comes to sizing, we'll go over that first. If you go to REI, you'll look at one brand of like their sleepy bag. It'll say regular, long, wide. So those are the sizes. So that's how long the bag is, how tall you are, wide, your width. And the thing with wide as well, it's not necessarily how wide you are. Do you sleep on your stomach and like to kick your leg out? Do you like to put your arm in various positions? Do you want more room in that sleeping bag? You may want to consider getting a wide if you're getting a sleeping bag and not a quilt. The other thing is there's also female specific bags. Me, I'm 5'6.5", and a lot of the female bags, you either buy a 5'6", or then it becomes 5'6" and beyond. So in the female range, you can get a 5'6" and under bag. Then you get into the loft and the temperatures and the degrees, and I am not an expert on that. What I do know for myself is I am a very, very cold sleeper. So even in the summer, I will carry, this is a 20-degree bag, I'll carry a 30-degree bag because I know what happens to me during the day. You're hiking, you're sweating, and you're burning up or whatever in the summer, even in the early spring, and I know what happens to my body at night. I settle down, I start getting a little chilled, and I want to be able to get in my bag, and I want to trust my sleep system. I didn't bring them up here, but I also, because I'm a cold sleeper, I also have down booties that you can get from Enlightened Equipment. There's several companies, Goose Down Gear. I will put little down booties on my feet because my feet just get cold. There's temperature ratings, there's loft, and I'm hoping one of you is more technical than me. I just go on, there's a survival rating, and you want to look at, okay, so this is a 20-degree bag. I am not safe in this bag in temperatures lower than 20 degrees. That's kind of the way you want to look at it. A 30-degree bag, a 40-degree bag, you definitely want to have your 40-degree bag. That's a summer bag. It's lighter. If you go down to a 30-degree bag, it gets heavier, and a 20-degree bag is even heavier. Are any of you like alpinists? You like to go out in the winter? You like to ice axe? Any of that kind of stuff? I don't get into that stuff because I hate to be cold. There are 0-degree bags. I think Dixie hikes with a 0-degree bag sometimes because she knows that she's a cold sleeper. So it goes back to what kind, you got to know your body and your temperature rating. The other night, Skunk Ape, he said he was burning up. He's taking his, sleeping bag. I was freezing. So I had to know how I regulate my temperature. And so with this is actually more custom made for me, my length and we'll call it girth, how I like to sleep, how I like to spread out. And one thing, when you go to buy a quilt, you have a lot of options. You can get little snaps where you can snap your quilt together. Some of them I've seen Velcro. You can get Velcro. I opted out of that because I don't want to roll my face over on Velcro. If I'm going to snap it, I might as well use my sleeping bag. That's my process. I might as well use my sleeping bag. And you can get a quilt with the foot box open. Mine is closed. Anybody know why? This is a quiz. Why would I opt to, I've given you the answer already, have a closed foot box? Cold feet. And you'll see this is also closed at the bottom. A lot of your quilts are open and they'll have a zip or a pull tie. Is that what you have? In my mind, I'm like, why? I would never do that. I will freeze to death. Any little pocket of air I didn't want to have at my feet. So again, it goes back to, it's so personal. All of your gear is very personable. And I would say this is just a little over a pound. And this is a 20 degrees. So if you want to, and that's my spiel, and I don't know who's next. Okay.
That's actual denim, not synthetic.
Oh, I'm sorry. And it is down. You have down versus synthetic. And typically, most of the time on the AT, you're going to see down bags. I'm not an expert on the difference, so maybe somebody else would talk with that. The only thing with down, if your down bag gets wet, you're screwed.
Yeah, you're in all sorts of trouble.
You're in trouble. And that's why if you're going into, I would say, if I'm going hiking in Canada, if I'm going hiking in the Cascades, if I'm going hiking in some type of environment where you're soaked and wet all the time, I would probably get a synthetic bag. And that depends on environment.
So if you're a cold sleeper, do you like the quilt over? I would think you'd want something zipped up and around you.
Well, I'm testing that theory. So if you ask, and you're going to get a different answer from everybody. So I am used to, the other night, I said I wish I would have had my 20-degree sleeping bag because I like to zip up, use the top part of the sleeping bag. I will literally put my head in there, and that becomes another warmth pocket for me. I did not like this out the other night, I will admit. but I don't know if I wrapped it around myself properly. I'm not sure. But for me, this is a summer bag for me, even though it's 20 degree.
Can I say something on that real quick?
Yeah, because you're probably totally the opposite.
Well, okay. With like a sleeping bag, it's all the way around you. You zip it up, okay? Here's the thing with a sleeping bag versus a quilt. If you're in a sleeping bag, as soon as you lay down on that in that sleeping bag, anything that's up under you, you're pushing down, it's no longer insulating because you're getting rid of that loft. The only way that you have insulation is for that loft, okay? So that's a benefit of a quilt. When I get in mine, I take and I put my feet in the foot box, and I pull it up, and then I take this hand and I reach over and I tuck it under here and tuck it under here on both sides. That way it is wrapped around me. If I do start to get cold, I do have enough, I can pull it up over my head as well. A lot of the quilts, they do have a snap up near the top. You got to snap, I got snaps up here that I can snap together so I can have my head through it, and then I can draw this up so that it's around my shoulders.
But you're still laying down on the loft.
Yeah, what I found now.
Well, the loft,
The other night, I'll tell you what I found. I felt air. And I wanted my sleep. I didn't care if I was laying on the loft. I wanted that. I didn't want to feel the air.
so the only place that I'm on my loft is at my feet. This,
Because you're saying that because you're in a hammock.
well, no, people use these for tents as well. All you're doing is tucking it up under your shoulders just enough to keep it down, to keep air from coming in. Other than that, you're not on the loft. You're laid, if you're in a tent, you're on your sleeping pad. In a hammock, I got my under quilt that's up under the hammock. So, you know, even then, which we'll go over all that later, I'm not compressing that loft.
I think it's personal preference, how you like to sleep. And again, even in the dead of summer, I go to sleep like I am a bear in a cave. It just makes me feel better. Yeah. So it just depends on how you sleep.
Right. Well, I when I hiked in first time, I took a quilt, and as with most of my gear, I found it at a place called OutdoorGearLab.com. It still exists, and it basically has ratings of all these different sleeping bags, sleeping pads. I bought the best one, which was a thing called Katabatic Gear. It was $450 back in 2014, so it's quite a lot of money. But it was a 30-degree quilt, and I went in March. I went through snow and so on. And generally I was fine, but one night in the Smokies it got down to 7 degrees. I'm in a 30-degree quilt. My gosh, this is how I learned something else that night. I could feel my feet were frozen. You expect your feet to be frozen, and I had socks on, obviously. I think I had every single item of clothing I had on, and yet my feet were frozen and my legs started. It was as if the freeze was coming up my legs. I was in terrible trouble. I didn't know what to do, you know. So typically, of course, I got out of bed to go for a pee in those days, and it was horizontal snow in this shelter. I'll never forget it as long as I live. And I got out there. I got out there into the snow, peed, got back into bed, and just that one bit of movement made me relax. And I got back into bed and I was okay again. And when I told people next morning, I was worried I wasn't even going to wake up, you know, because I was so darn cold. They said, your Nalgene bottle will take really hot water, boiling water. In your Nalgene bottle, put some hot water in there, put it in the foot base, and that will warm up your quilt, and it makes a huge amount of difference. But the way in which mine attached, I had a Thermarest pad, which I've got now, and I'll show you that in a minute. I've got a Thermarest pad. It had strings around it, I had to attach, and then the quilt would clip to just underneath the pad. So, and the warmth of the pad was so good, and I also had an inner a silk liner as well. keeps the inside the sleeping bag or the quilt warmer, cleaner rather, keeps you warmer. It's worth about 10 degrees apparently, the silk liner. So I would definitely do that as well. Now I have a sleeping bag. I've got 20-degree Big Agnes bag, and it is, let me just bring it out. I'll put it away. It comes out as big as this, okay? What I encourage you all to get with your sleeping bag, I hope I brought it with me. Yeah, I have. No, I didn't. I thought I had. It's one of these. Yeah. It's called Granite Gear. And this thing has been worth its weight in gold because this is quite a substantial bag, and you can, this thing will bring it down to literally the size of a football, and it's just perfect. It saves so much space. This Granite Gear compression sack was a gift to me when I was on the trail, so I've used that ever since. It's lovely. This is a this sleeping bag is the warmest sleeping bag I've ever been in. I've been in 0-degree bags and 20-degree bags and 10-degree bags rather. This seems warmer. I've been the last 2 nights I've been snug as a bug. There's plenty of room inside it. It's the Big Agnes, and this thing is wonderful. Put this over your head at night. Oh my God! And you suddenly zipped all the way up, and you just couldn't get any warmer. This will cinch it even tighter, so you could literally just have your nose out there. And I haven't quite needed that for the last 2 nights. But getting my and Julie was saying earlier on. That getting your feet, getting yourself warm and comfortable after you've been cold and wet and hiking all day long. There's very few feelings in life that can improve upon that. Now you're comfortable, you're warm, and you know you're going to be warm throughout the night as well. I wear socks. She wears these booties. I sometimes wear socks.
I wear socks too, and boots.
All right. Okay.
No, I swear, with me, my feet are warmer without socks. I don't know whether that's because the socks are compressing them or whatever, but so I generally do not sleep with anything on my feet.
That's a beautiful bag. I was recommended that by several people, and I don't think I'll ever get another bag. That's the one I'm going to get forever, I think. And yeah, it's worked out well for me. But that is down. Okay. This is referred to as water repellent down. So I'm not terribly sure how that works, but
it's coated. It's coated with a water repellent. The down is coated with a water repellent, and then it's all dried and everything.
If it gets wet,
it helps some with slight dampness, but if it got wet, it's gonna clump. You know.
And being a big guy, I can move around, sleep on my side, on my back, and just shift my knees up if I want to. So I can really move around in this bag and have plenty of room and stay warm all night long, which of course is the only reason you really want a sleeping bag, to keep you warm all night long. In summer, sometimes it does get a little bit too warm, and then I sleep in just the silk liner. So that works as well.
I want earlier you heard Jester say that about you know, the temperature rating of quilts and quilts and sleeping bags. There is a comfort rating and there's a survival rating. They're 2 totally different things. A survival rating, if you have something that's, you know, just say 20 degrees survival rating, you can go down to 20 degrees. You're going to be cold. You probably won't die because it's survival rating. If it's 20-degree comfort rating, you're going to be comfortable at 20 degrees. You could probably take it lower. If the temperature did drop, you would still survive in that. What I'd probably, you know, say on that is, like, if you go to Walmart and, you know, bought like a 20-degree, it's probably going to be survival rated. Whereas, you know, a lot of your bigger companies or your cottage vendors that you know, call them up and you order one for, they're going to be your comfort rated.
And I know it's the same sort of subject. Being on I put my everyone's got an air pad, I presume. I bought myself a Thermarest. They're about $200, so they're not cheap. But I tell you what, they are so warm, and I advise everybody to get one of these from REI. The most exhausting thing you do at the end of the day, apart from trying to throw your bloody food back up over a tree, is blow your air pad up. But get one of these. I can inflate this pad in about 3-4 bags of this. Just press into it, and it then completely gets inflates your air pad, and that's so worthwhile. I found it warm. I found it very comfortable. I think I hit on a really good sleeping system pretty much straight away when I started hiking, and I've always slept reasonably well in the tent as well. Okay.
Want me to jump in? Well, I consider myself very fortunate. I didn't bring it over here, but you all know what a Z-Lite, just a foam pad is, a closed cell foam. I can sleep on that. If you can sleep on that, that's what you should use. If you're comfortable on that, that's what you should use. And here's why. These can develop holes. They're sometimes hard to patch. I've seen people try to patch them and just never get it done. And then they're awake every hour trying to blow them up. They're awesome and warm and all that stuff, but they are a little higher maintenance and just blowing them up and everything. When I started on my first hike, somebody had given me a blow up pad. After 105 miles, I was like, nope, and I just got a Z-Lite. So, but not everybody is comfortable on a Z-Lite. So I used for several years, you know, the AT, including just an REI Igneo 20-degree bag. Again, I'm not a shill for REI, but you know, their stuff isn't crazy expensive and it works. That bag's still with me. The loft isn't exactly what it used to be, but it's perfectly good, perfectly happy. I'm fortunate I do gear reviews for a website. So I've tried out a bunch of sleeping bags, and the one that if I wanted to be really warm, I also have a Big Agnes 20-degree torch, and that's the one I use. It's also got some extra features from this. It's got a sort of a zip on each side, adds a little bit of weight so that you can expand. You can keep it narrow if you want, but you can expand it out. I'm what I call a rotisserie sleeper. I go like this all night long. Back, stomach, both sides. I can do it all. And so I do need a certain amount of room. However, for the last, 4,000 miles of hiking, I've been using this. It's the first time I ever used a quilt. Again, it was something I got for a review. I'm not going to completely unzip it because this bottom zip is just a devil for me. But if I unzip it, it literally is just a square thing that you might call a quilt. I'm not going to unzip it for you. So it's got that feature. And it zips up pretty far. It's fairly lightweight. That's why I went with it. It does have the snaps that I've never used. So I don't really need that. But if I wanted to, you know, I could close it. I don't really know why I would. I guess I must not be a super cold sleeper. I don't think I'm super warm either. But I like, even when I have a sleeping bag, I mostly have it unzipped and open so that it's pretty loose unless it's really, really cold. This thing does have the toe box that you can open up. And it seems like a weird thing, but you know what? My feet do get hot sometimes, and it's kind of nice to have this thing. You can just poke them out. For me, it does work pretty well to be able to just cinch that guy back up, and it tightens up good enough for me and my bare feet. Like I say, I don't usually sleep with something. This also has what I consider to be a fairly amusing feature, and I will try to keep my comments PG-13. So this is this little thing. This is a company called Kammock, and they just have this little innovation that you can wear this thing as a poncho kind of thing. So they have what I call the birth canal here, and you'll see why. I'm gonna just keep it PG-13. And I've only ever worn it as a poncho. It's really warm. It just hangs over. But I bring it out all the time and I unzip that so that I can show whoever I'm hiking with the birth process. Anyway, but if it were unzipped, it's just like this, and you look kind of like a really goofy sumo wrestler, but it's shockingly warm. So, you know, I don't know how many ounces that little feature adds. Again, I didn't buy this. I was sent it to review. It's kind of neat. And this thing works really well for me. It's light material, so you might have seen a couple places where I have some tenacious tape patch up a hole. but it's lightweight. It's been working for me. It's been totally fine. There was 1 or 2 nights on the PCT where it was right on the edge of what I was okay with. This is a 20-degree quilt, right on the edge. But my gosh, these nights that we've had, it's just more than enough for me. I usually sleep in clothes except for my feet. I don't know what the feet thing is. So there's that, and it is kind of a nifty thing. And then you can do the birth canal demonstration. Anybody seen the dumb Jim Carrey movie, Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, the second one, where he's in the robotic rhino and he has to escape through the anus of the rhino? Anyway, it makes me think of that every time. So the birth canal. But there you go. I love this thing.
Awesome. I know we need to go over should we take a field trip to the sun for a minute? All right, it looks like we have everybody back. So right now, kind of the way the next few sessions are going to go, we're going to go over, so we've gone over the major big 3, but part of your sleep system, depending on if you're hammocking or you are tenting, is your sleep pad. And these are, I'm probably going to say this more than you want me to, personal. They're very, it's your comfort level and what you want to do. And out of all the equipment I've ever purchased, I've probably purchased, I'm not kidding when I say this number, 10 different styles of sleeping pads. And then I decided, stop it. Go with the pad that you're comfortable on, not what everybody else is using. And I have settled on this REI. I think it's called the REI Flash. It's 15 ounces. Again, when you're looking at pads, they're kind of like sleeping bags. They're rated with what's called an R value. So the lower the R value, so if you have a pad that's a 0, that's a summer pad. There's not a lot of insulating powers to that pad. And again, there's a theme here. Jester is cold at night. So the R value on this is the pad I carry all the time, summer, spring, winter, fall, what have you. This is a 3.7. A lot of people's summer pads are 1, 1.5, 2. Those, I'm not sure they even have 0.6, 2.6. So that's what it means when you're looking at this, the R value. And again, along with the sleeping pads, there is what I'm going to call the length and the width, your girth rather. So you can get a regular, which is your standard, a regular is your standard 72 length and a 20 width. And this will blow up to 2 inches high, 2-inch thickness. That's your standard size on any of these pads. If you're a tall guy, Austin, Mighty Blue, over 6 foot, they do make a long. And they do make a wide that goes out to 22, I think it's 22 or 24 inches. And I've often contemplated getting the wide because I'm the sleeper that lays down, my legs out like this. And when you're in a tent, guess what? Your knee is on the cold because your pad is only 20 inches wide. But I haven't gone there yet. This seems to do the trick. So there's the pad. And they're getting real easy. I like this REI one too because of the valve system. One side, as you blow it up, the air doesn't come back out at you. The older pads, the way you used to have to blow them up is you blew the air in, you had to put your tongue on the valve to take a breath, and then blow again. These are real easy. You just blow in, and then when you're, that sound in the morning when you know everybody is getting up, you start hearing tsh. This is the empty valve.
Which is the best way to wake up, by the way. If you can't get out of your bed, just while you're lying there, just undo it. You just have to get up.
And you have to get up. So this one, and I like how this one folds and rolls up. It's just personal preference. And this is my pillow. I don't even know what kind this is. It's some generic. One of the things I wanted to show you about this is my pillowcase. which for some reason, years and years and years, this is not a pillowcase, it's actually a buff. I was actually a gentleman coming here tonight, his name is Hawk, and I was watching one of his videos, and he puts a buff over his pillow, and I was like, I am an idiot. Why did I never think of that? And it is so comfortable. It really does change the feeling that you get, you know, when you're laying on it. It does remind you of being on a really nice, soft pillowcase instead of, you know, rubbing your face. And some pillowcases, they get real fancy. Some might come with a velvet fuzzy on the side. And this one has one valve, but you blow into it. And then to release it, there's a little button. You just press on the button, you squeeze it, and then I just pack all this together. And there's nothing like at the end of the night. This is a Wilderness Technology. I'm not even sure where I got this. Probably at some outfitter. It's light. I don't know. This might be 3 or 4 ounces. I'm not sure. But I just stuff it all in together. And there you go. So I don't know if anybody wants to see a pillow, but I'm one of those that used to sleep on my stinky clothes. Stupid. I mean, I'm just never comfortable. A pillow does make, and it stinks. And you're like, oh my God, I'm that funky.
What is a buff?
A buff is a magical tool. So yes. Here, you can feel this, even a pillowcase. And here's the deal with a buff. Now, I've never done this, but when you buy, all outfitters have these. And Buff is the brand.
Okay.
It's a neck gaiter. It will come stitched or fastened to a piece of cardboard. And on the back of the cardboard are about 10, 15 different configurations. And I usually, now that I use this as a pillowcase, I usually have 2. Because sometimes at night, and I didn't have one the other night, I will put it on and pull it up like to right here, you know, and help cover my face when it's really, yeah, like a balaclava. Yeah, yeah. Or whatever that thing is. Yeah. So.
Like, is that a cotton one?
No, this is just like what's it, dry fit material. Here you go.
They make them wool too. I've got a couple wool ones that are
Pass that around.
Yeah.
And that is clean, by the way. Yeah. It has no drool on it from last night. It is clean. And that's kind of what, basically, you've seen almost what we all sleep on in our sleeping bags. And Pony, do you want to go? Since you probably have the, there's just no way for me. That's an absolute no, but you see those all the time.
So why is it a no just because it's not enough?
It's just not enough for me. I feel like I'm just...
It's not about insulation, it's just about padding for people. That's about 1/4 of an inch, and that's what you're relying on. And you either are okay with that or you're not. So if not, you want something more substantial. I will mention these some people don't realize this, they do mash down and they lose some of their R rating as time goes on. So you do have to replace them, but not very often. They're inexpensive, they're easy. So this is the Thermarest Z-Lite. I've cut off either 2 or 3 panels, I forget what it is. So this is actually not as, this is shorter than you would actually get, and people cut off the panels just for weight. What I do is I have it a little bit shorter, and then even me, I'm short. Well, you look, my feet are way off here. I guess you can't see that, but so what I do, and I learned this hack from a hiker named Paul Mignanti, is my pack goes down here. So my pack is under my feet, and that's my pad for my feet. So that again is just weight saving. It all sounds sort of ridiculous. I'm not ultralight, I never will be. But you know, the less weight, the better for me, for my feet. This thing folds up like that. It can be stuffed anywhere. You can carry it inside your pack. You can carry it in a side pocket, in a back pocket. I've strapped it on top. It's just very easy. It'll get rained on, it'll get snowed on, and it's just, it doesn't soak in. It's not wet, you know, inside. So it's just a real easy thing. And then some people will just have, like, you can buy a separate little panel to sit on. If I usually don't do this, but if I stop somewhere for lunch and I want to something to sit on. There it is. You just whip it out. So it's kind of multifunctional, very lightweight. It is sufficient for me, but not a lot of people for sleeping on. Like I say, I think the R rating is 2.6, which is pretty good. Winter camping, I've done a little bit on it. It's really, it gets to where it's not really quite enough. So, you know, that's the reality of that. But I do like it and it's versatile. I stuff my dirty clothes in my waterproof compression sack, sleeping bag compression sack, and that is what I sleep on. That's a great hack that I never thought about, except that I'm usually wearing my buff if it's cold at all. But if it's not, I'm going to start putting my buff on the outside of that, because I don't, again,
It's like, why didn't we ever think of that?
I know, that's a great idea. So I'm not ultralight. I'm sort of annoyed by ultralighters because they're just these people whose base weight is like 7 pounds. I don't even know how you do that. But I do, my feet get hammered just like anybody. So the fewer pounds, they say in the Marine Corps, ounces add up to pounds and pounds add up to pain. And that's kind of true. So that's why I do all that stuff. That's why I double function, all that stuff. And I have a buff now. I don't carry a hat. I just use the buff as my hat. I put it on, I twist it and pull it down. It's got 2 layers. So anything that I can double use, I will do it. And that's how I do my pillow. And the pad, again, is just, I'm very fortunate that it works for me. Doesn't work for everybody.
And the buffs are 50 SPF rating, aren't they, as well?
Yeah.
So there's pretty good protection, really good protection.
And there are all those funky ways that you can put them on. You know, you can like pull it over here, plus up over here. I mean, there's a million different ways. It's everybody has a buff.
And they're good stocking stuffers when people don't know what to get a hiker for Christmas. Yeah. Buffs are great stocking stuffers. We're going to go over the 10 essentials. Those are good stocking stuffers. Mighty Blue's going to go over his pad.
Did you ever use 2 of those?
Yeah, I think it weighs, I'm trying to remember what it weighs. It's like, it's more than you think. I think it's like 6 ounces or 4 ounces or something. But yeah, that's not a terrible idea. Like, frankly, that's probably what I would do if I knew I was going to be more winter camping. I don't, as I mentioned, I'm just not a big fan of the blow-up pads. I just don't like having to do that work, and they do get holes, or they can get holes, but I understand that's what a lot of people like. Austin has a Neo Air. The Xtherm, okay. Anyway, some of the pads that Thermarest makes, you will make enemies in the shelters if you sleep on them, because it's like sleeping on a potato chip bag. It goes crinkle, crackle all night long.
The original ones were. I've now hiked 2 full through hikes with the Thermarest Neo Air X Lite. And this is my second one because the first one fell down a mountain, unfortunately. It fell off my pack and fell down the mountain. But I never, in that, 4,400 miles on the AT, never had a puncture on my air pad. First night in California, I got a puncture. First night. So it went down, so I was sleeping on the floor literally for the whole of the first night in California. Somebody repaired it the next day. It's been perfect ever since. But I've got this time is a large, because I feel I'm a pretty big guy. This is 77 inches long, full 25 inches wide at its maximum. So it really does take up a lot of space in my tent, but I can fit entirely on this, and I like that feeling of fitting entirely on it. And this thing about the crinkly chips, I'm not going to inflate it now, but that's what I would use to inflate it. You get it from REI. Literally fill the bag up 3 times, or just open it 3 times, squeeze it up, goes into there, and it will inflate this fully. This is 4.6 rated, and it does reflect your heat back to you. And I find it incredibly warm every single night. So if you've got one of these, I don't think you can go wrong with one of these, other than the fact that most people think it's way too long as well. But for me, I just felt I needed that extra height. I mean, have you got a long pad as well? One of these, yeah.
Not that brand.
Yeah, but this brand, once again, when I told you earlier on, I looked on Outdoor Gear Lab for the best sleeping bags or sleeping or quilts, the Katabatic gear was the #1 when I went in 2014. It was the #1 when I went in 2019 as well. And this the Neo Air was also the #1 both years as well. So 4 or 5 years it was the #1. I have no idea now what the top one is, but I suspect the Thermarest is still one of the top ones. And I don't think you can go wrong with it. And as I say, I found the whole thing very, very reliable and not at all noisy. And frankly, if I'm in my tent, I don't really care. So I don't tend to go in shelters too much if I can avoid it. So,
California is very sharp.
yes, indeed it was. First night. So that's mine. It works beautifully.
It is sharp.
So then would you combine the closed cell form with an inflatable one if you need that additional loft just to protect that?
You could do that. I mean, this is relatively lightweight. You could certainly do that. I don't know. It's a joke, but it's not. California is very sharp. Most of the West is sharper than what you get here. So there's spines of all kinds and sharp rocks and this and that, pine cones with points on them. And it is a lot easier to poke a hole in one out West, I think. I think on the AT, it's not a problem at all, probably. I imagine it's not really a problem on the AT.
Do you have an inner liner as well?
No.
You don't? Okay. Well, these sleeping bags, after 180 days in the woods, get very, very funky. So,
Yes, indeed.
and so I strongly advise somebody to have a liner because you will not regret it. You can get it washed every now and then. It keeps the sleeping bag much better. It's still pretty funky even when you've had a sleeping liner in it as well.
All right, so real quick, well, not real quick, over the next few minutes, each one of us you'll find over this weekend, like the rest of today, and then tomorrow, we kind of have our things that we're passionate about. And one of those of you that went to Dismal Falls, you heard the Leave No Trace presentation, which was the 7 principles of Leave No Trace. And the first principle of Leave No Trace is plan ahead and prepare. And for me, the 10 essentials fall under plan ahead and prepare. And you'll hear this terminology, 10 essentials, and one of the reasons that I gave each one of you a safety hanky is the 10 essentials are on here, but they actually have 12. And I just want to hit the highlights. And for those of you that are going on a through hike or a long section hike, and I just carry this on the outside of my pack. It always goes with me. It's blaze orange. People can see you and find you. Do what?
Not shoot.
And not shoot you, yes. I mean, this has, if you get in a particular situation, it's hypothermia, hypothermia, bug bites, different plants, poison ivy. It's really something that could actually save your life, this little hanky, because there's all types of safety tips on here, and the 10 essentials are on here as well. But what I want everybody to think about, and this is a topic that most people don't want to think about because it's not sexy. You know, sometimes it's not pleasant, and that is your own personal safety. And on the Appalachian Trail, I think when you look at some of the trails out west, on the Pacific Crest Trail, the CDT, hikers tend to think more about their safety than on the Appalachian Trail. And I think that's a mistake. I think you need to think about your own personal safety all the time. And you also need to think about your family. So you're going out to have this wonderful wilderness experience. You're going to hike this long distance trail. And sometimes families don't understand everything that encompasses that. And not only for safety, but for your family, a little device like this, whether this is a spot, there is also something, a very popular device is the Garmin InReach. And this will save your life. It doesn't matter if you're on the AT, if you're on the Pacific Crest Trail, you know, if you're on the Pinhoti Trail, if you're on the Mountains of Sea Trail, you could twist your ankle. You could twist your ankle and be caught in rain up on Clingman's Dome in the middle of the summer, and it gets cold. And you could get hypothermia. you might need to dig in your pack and get your rain gear out. And Clay's going to go over a little bit more about your rain gear. And I say this, I was very adamant not to carry one of these devices early in my hiking days because I just thought, well, I don't want to be found. That is stupid. Now that if you say it out loud, it's like, yes, if something happens to me, I do want to be found. I do want to be able to get rescued. I do want to be able to do those things. And what you want to do is think about your family. And I'll tell you one story. Back in 2016, a very, very close family friend of mine, this gentleman, his name is Chris Sherpa Fowler, decided he was going to fulfill his dream and he was going to hike on the Pacific Crest Trail. And my younger sister is best friends with his mother. And he was like me, that hiker. Mom, I'll call you every couple weeks. I'm living my dream on the PCT. Nothing's going to happen to me. And he carried his cell phone, and a lot of times it was not charged. He just didn't think about it. And I don't say this to scare you, and I don't say this for you to think about anything except your family. He has been missing in Washington on the PCT since 2016. He went out in the White Pass area. None of his gear has been found. Nothing he had has been found. And if he would have had a device, and the sad thing is he had a spot, but it didn't have service. He carried it without the service to appease his family. But if you don't have the service, that really doesn't appease your family. And there's nothing worse than interviewing a mother of a hiker that's missing. So I ask all of you to think about your family and why you would why you should carry one of these devices. If you can't carry something that weighs this much, then something's the matter. That's the way I look at it, and that's kind of what I'm passionate about. And one of the reasons I wanted to give you guys a safety hanky. And I just think that these are things that we need to think about, because if you get injured on the trail, it could take search and rescue up to 10 hours, even longer, to even get to you. Because a lot of the SAR individuals, they're volunteer. They're at their day jobs. They're at their evening jobs. And then they have to assimilate, and then they have to go out and get you. And that's where the 10 essentials come in. And the main thing about the 10 essentials is to really think, can I get warm? So at all of your gear, most hikers, your through hikers, you're going to have the 10 essentials in your pack. You're going to have your rain gear. You're going to have your sleep system. You're going to have your headlamp. You're going to have, out west, you're definitely going to have your sunscreen. You're going to have your bug repellent. You're going to have your food. You're going to have your water. Those things are going to be automatic. And those are the things that are going to keep you safe. And you really need to think, the thing about the 10 essentials is, can I spend one night on the trail and stay warm if I'm injured? Once I hit my button and I know somebody's coming for me. And the beauty of the Garmin InReach, if you buy the particular plan, you can communicate with search and rescue. And like I said, it doesn't happen a lot on the AT, but Inchworm, that Pony was speaking of earlier, she was a half a mile from a shelter in Maine. And statistics show, I've had a couple what I would consider hiker safety experts on my podcast. Most people are found within a 2-mile radius of where they started, whether it was from a shelter that morning, whether it was getting off at a trailhead. So a lot of search and rescue situations are not out in remote wilderness. You're up to a couple miles from where you started. And another story that resonates with me is the family that went out, I think it was near the Grand Canyon in the desert, not this past summer, but the summer before, they went out on a day hike. They had their dog with them. They all died.
That was in California.
Yeah.
It was on the PCT.
Oh, it was on the PCT. Because of water. All of them. So just something to think about. And I have my poll. This is another quiz. And it's in a particular, well, I'm not going to tell you. Why do you think I have my pole this way in the ground?
To tell you which way to go the next morning?
Yes. Anybody else have any guesses?
Tell rescue where you are. Or pointing the direction that you are. It's also pointing north.
Both of you are right. It's pointing in a direction. So it could be the direction you need to go when you get up in the morning. For me, primarily, what I will do if I go off trail to use the restroom, I have this on here because Blaze Orange, I can always see it. So I put my orange duct tape on my pole, and I always put it in the direction I need to go. Because even the other day when we walked up to, this is actually a really good example, when we walked up from Weary Feet, Clay was actually standing on the Appalachian Trail, and I couldn't see the trail. Remember, because I said, oh, I think we need to go that way. I still thought he was not on the trail. So when you step off to use the restroom, you could get disoriented rather quickly on which way you need to go. So it's just a hack. It's like the pillow, putting the buff over the pillowcase. It's just a hack to use. You can never go wrong with Blaze Orange on your pole. So if you're down there, you know, you have to step off and go. You could always see that.
Can I throw something in here? So several years ago, I was climbing some 14ers in Colorado, and there was a man that was missing. And in fact, my AT friend who was out there with me, and I helped with the rescue just because we were able to help them create a narrative and figure out, because we had seen his empty tent. But I ended up writing a little newspaper story about it for the local newspaper after he was rescued. He just got off track. And one of the things, this is especially true for us men, because I don't know what they think. I guess maybe they know, they got their marketing surveys, but we get all the most boring damn colors in the world. If you're a guy, you can wear gray, black, brown, dark blue. And if you're a real fairy, you get maroon. You know, it's like, ah. So, you know, y'all laughed at my yellow shirt, and it wouldn't work here in the autumn in the Appalachians, but the search and rescue guys that I was talking to that day, when I wrote the story after the guy got rescued, they said, you need to have something that is a weird color that's big enough to where if they're aerial searching you, they can see it. It is different. It's probably more the case out west where it's not so much tree cover, but they couldn't see him. He was out in the open, and he just had earth colors. If he'd had this, or if he'd had a big old pink shirt, or a bright, bright blue, something that just looked like it didn't belong in the environment. Yeah, and they literally said to me, people don't think about that have one item in your pack, even here under the trees, that somebody can see aerially. And they missed the guy several times with the helicopter. He was waving at him and everything, but he's waving his, you know, his man colors, and they couldn't see him. So yeah, it's okay to have one bright colored thing, guys.
And in the middle of this hanky, I guess it's not a challenge, but I challenge each of you. It says the basic dozen, 10 essentials. Just know what these are and have them in your pack. It's easy. Can I stay out one night? Can I survive one night so those search and rescue individuals that have left their day jobs and they're coming to get you, can I stay out one night? Can I survive? And that's my little pitch for hiker safety. And it's not something, and you don't talk about hiker safety all the time, but I just think it's so important, especially after when it hits close, you think about it more. And if you don't do it for yourself, do it for your family, because as Sally, Chris's mother, would say, having to clean up a death It's not fun. And if you go missing, you don't get a death certificate. You go on the missing persons. So we don't want that to happen. Any questions?
One question, but a point. In July this summer, a fellow died of hypothermia on Mount Washington.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yes. And you know, and when you think about these things, you never want to, the gentleman that died on Mount Washington, you don't know the circumstance, but you would hope that he had everything he needed. Maybe he didn't. I'm not sure. But if Inchworm would have had a spot, she'd have been found.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
Also, I mean, if you get a chance, it's not a bad idea also to just look online, around your local area or whatever, and see if there's someone that is doing like survival classes, because in those survival classes they teach you, how to signal and how to do all the different stuff. Like this, there you got your 10 essentials. There's also the 7 priorities of wilderness survival.
I host those kind of courses all over
and they're
the country.
free.
Yeah.
Some of them are, some of them aren't. It depends, and then, with I think it was Pony that said something about carrying a compass. Mm-hmm. Like the compass that I have in my pack, it has a mirror on it. Well, with that mirror, it works for several things. When you're doing orienteering and stuff like that. But it also works to signal if something was to happen and a plane was flying over, but you got to know how to use it to be able to get them to see it. So, I mean, if there's any, classes or anything that you can take for, wilderness survival, I would really suggest it. Or if not, even look on YouTube. I'm sure there's, plenty of little YouTube videos that you can watch that will, show you different stuff like that as well.
Orienteering too. I mean, there's little chance you'll need it on the AT, but it's just a cool thing to know how to do. REI does orienteering classes for $80 and they're in the field. So it's worth doing. Most people don't know how to use a map and compass. And especially if you get out west and do some different stuff, it's worth knowing that skill.
Awesome. So remember, leave no trace, 7 principles. Number 1, plan ahead and prepare. Vital. Leave an itinerary. Let somebody know where you are. In between a rock and a hard place, everybody's heard of that, right? He went out in the canyons for the day, and guess what? He had to cut his arm off because he didn't tell anybody where he was.
REI has classes in how to cut your arm off. I think they're only $65 and they do it in the field. So you sign up for it.